what impact on the law could Senate Bill 81, the 89th Texas legislature have when it comes to immigration?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I was reading Senate Bill 81, and I don't think it's actually per se a law as much as it is a declaration that the Congress is trying to make, or the legislature is trying to make, in the sense that they are trying to invoke the powers under Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution. What they are trying to do is say that normally a state would not have this power, but under Article 1, Section 10, if the state can show that it's an imminent danger, as will not admit delay, that they have the power to do things that they normally federally would not be allowed to do. And so Senate Bill 81 is trying to invoke that power and take power from the federal government and give it to the state. And so this declaration would allow them to do things that they would normally not be allowed to do along the border because it's generally within the federal purview of immigration.
So you see this more as a declaration than a law. What's sort of the difference when it comes to the two?
Well, because generally a law will have elements to it, like this is now a crime. These are the elements of said crime. This is actually a declaration by the legislature saying we are invoking the language of Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, which will now allow us to do things that would generally be in the federal purview, which if you've read Senate Bill 81, it talks about returning to Mexico's illegals to Mexico. That is generally something that would be left to the federal government to do. Also, they have included using force to detect, repel, apprehend, detain, and arrest known transnational cartel objectives. Generally, border enforcement would be left to the federal government to do. And also, I think it's very broad to use words like use force. What does that actually mean? It's not defined in Senate Bill 81. And so that is also interesting language. But there's no actual new crime that's laid out within Senate Bill 81. Again, I think that this may be the legislature's way of trying to invoke powers that would normally be held by the federal government and give them to the state.
So then, going off of that, would this bill really change all that much in your view?
Well, it would change a lot because, in fact, if they can make this declaration and the federal government does not challenge it, then the state is looking to do things beyond its normal capacity to do, which would be to now involve themselves in border enforcement, deportation, potentially a lot of things that are covered under Article 1, Section 10. So it would give them more power than a state normally would have. And I do believe that the federal government would have a problem with that. So I think it is a little bit questionable whether Trump's administration would do something about this because they are heavily involved at the border now. And so there is a question as to whether this declaration is, I would say, even valid under this current administration.
Yeah, so let's go deeper into that. Could you see this being challenged, whether at the state level or at the federal level?
I mean, I do believe that it should be challenged because it's declaring that we are in imminent danger and that there is no time to delay. I think that's questionable based on the current circumstances of the border. The border is right now being heavily guarded by federal military. The federal government has agreed to allow the state in many ways to also send military. And so it is questionable whether this declaration under the Trump administration is even necessary. In terms of whether the Trump administration would actually challenge it, that's hard to say at this point in time because we've seen a lot of other things. So I really couldn't tell you. Do I think the federal government should challenge it? Absolutely. I do not think it meets the standard for giving the state these types of powers.
Now, you've talked about, some aspects of the bill that stood out to you. Was there any other language that really stood out to you when reading it?
I mean, all of the language is kind of interesting because it seems like a lot of the language involves things that the state is already doing. Under Section 1, it says detect, deter, repel, and prosecute persons attempting to enter unlawfully enter the state at locations. The state has already been prosecuting for criminal trespass, and has already been using powers that they already had. The federal government has the ability to prosecute people who enter illegally. Again, I think this is state making a grab for power that is generally within the purview of the federal government. Perhaps the Trump administration will not challenge it, but I guarantee you a new administration will challenge it, and it is challenging.
Now, would this impact, if this were to pass, would this impact anything you do as an immigration attorney?
I think as an immigration attorney, maybe, right? One big issue with the state involving themselves in immigration issues is that generally state actors don't have a whole lot of federal immigration knowledge. And so there are a lot of requirements and different types of status that people will have under immigration law that most state officials won't even understand. And so it would be something where, as immigration attorneys, we would have to come in and explain to the state, like, well, you may think this person is here illegally, but they're actually not. So there would be, I think, a big rub between federal law and state law if the state of Texas is allowed to do this. And I think it will create a lot of additional work for already overtaxed criminal prosecution units all along the border for the state to now involve themselves in something that the federal government is obviously handling.
And is there anything else you'd like for our audience to know about Senate Bill 81?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things that we need to know when it comes to immigration is that some of the things that the state seeks to involve themselves in, and I understand that people may not be happy with the way the federal government has been working, but the federal government is in the best position to handle these types of cases. One, because they have the expertise, and two, because they have the ability to do it better than the state would do it. And so, I think it's important that we allow the federal government to do what they have to do, and for the state to basically step back and allow the federal government to do that. So I do think it's interesting why this is being introduced, especially under the current administration and the current administration's policies. It seems very unnecessary to me. And so, yeah.